one of the most important and most widely accepted roles that a man is supposed to play is that of a provider. Most people that you speak to, if you were to have a conversation about what is a man, what is a man supposed to be, provider is one of those things that will come very high up on the list. And I want to talk about that a little bit in today's video. So provider, what do we mean? When people say provider, what usually they're talking about money and they're talking about material things. So the general idea is that a man should be the one who is the biggest earner in a couple, in a relationship. And the man is the one with the responsibility to make sure that the family has a roof over their head, food, clothes, shelter, and any other, key needs and wants that come with that. And I agree with that to an extent. Where I think that is most important is with regard to child rearing. The reason being that when now you're talking about, a couple now bringing children into this world, you don't just obviously switch a switch and then there's a child there and then you just carry on your life. Bringing a child into the world involves 9 months of gestation, 9 months of pregnancy, and then usually 9 to 12 months of weaning, if you like, breastfeeding, all that sort of stuff, or maybe more, maybe a year, at least a year or more than a year of breastfeeding, all that stuff. And that is all of that sort of stuff is going to, I think we've got this mindset with regard to pregnancy and actually bearing a child. We've got this mindset that kind of doesn't, I don't think, value how important and how much work a woman does to get that, to do this. How much of an impact as well that has on a woman's body, on a woman's psyche. There's a lot of hormonal changes, a lot of, irreversible or, permanent changes with regard to their bodies and all this kind of stuff. And I think we've got a problem in Britain and certainly in America as well, whereby women are not really able to take the time that most of them really will need to focus the attention, and to have the head space and the body space and the whatnots to maintain their well-being and also to bring this child into this world and to embed this child into this world, So with that in mind, I think that it's sensible for people, if you're a couple or you're thinking of becoming a couple or whatever, I think it's very sensible for you guys to start very far in advance and start to think about, okay, how are we going to negotiate those pregnancy and early childhood years? How are we going to do this? So, for example, it makes sense for a man not to go over the top with career and all this sort of stuff, but it makes sense for a man, say if you're not looking to have children maybe till you're 30 or something, use your 20s then to build up your career. This is something that I should have done and I didn't do. Use your 20s to build up your career, build up your business, whatever it is, build up the profitability of your business, build up the lucrativeness, if that's a word, build up the value of your skill set, build up the value of what you have to sell into the labor market or to sell into the whatever other market you're into. If you're self-employed, build up the value of whatever it is that your business is doing to such a point that when it comes to the time when you're now thinking about bringing children into this world, you are, you're at a level where you could, if need be, take on the entire responsibility of income, of managing the bills and all that sort of stuff, managing the household finances, carrying the burden of all of that for a year or two or whatever. I think that's got to be your strategy. And this is one of the reasons why when I talk about philosophy, I'm not talking about philosophy like, metaphysics and epistemology and ontology. I'm not talking about that sort of stuff. As important, as great, I love all that stuff, that sort of stuff. I'm just talking about how are we going to live our lives? Let's think very early in advance how we are going to live our lives, what vision that we have for our lives. Doesn't have to be super detailed, but at some point, you do, as a young adult, you need to get to a point where you're now on a trajectory. I think a problem that we have, particularly amongst men, black men, young black men, is that there's a lack of direction, a lack of purpose. And it doesn't mean to say that you only have one permanent purpose in your life forever, but you've got to be moving towards something by the time you're getting into like your mid-20s or earlier, really. The earlier, the better. Start to be, so we need to be encouraging our youngsters to construct a story of their lives from early on. The woman as well is part of that. So yes, when you're, as a woman who's going to be having a baby, there's going to be a period of time where you're not going to be earning. You're going to be missing out on potential increments in your earning and all that sort of stuff. But if you position yourself in such a way that for the first several years, you're developing and building up and all that sort of stuff, you know that when you come back in, you've positioned yourself in the market, in the labor market, you've positioned yourself in such a way that when you come back, you will be in demand and it won't take you long to catch back up to wherever you were. Or you're in a position where you can now pivot. You might want to start working part-time. That's absolutely fine. You might want to start working part-time, or your husband, the man might start wanting to work part-time to manage those first few years. Because the other thing as well to remember with children is that it's not like, pregnancy, then maternity leave, then it's all finished, back to normal. Then you've got 4 or 5 years of nursery fees, or finding a way to raise your children while still being able to keep a roof over your head. The perfect scenario would be that one or both of the parents goes part-time for those years, which will enable them to be able to actually raise their children and barely need to use childcare. But anyway, circling back to masculinity, circling back to men, in that regards, yes, it's absolutely important, really important and this is something, I'm talking about men, but this is something for women to be looking at with men. If you're looking to have a child with a man, please consider, is this man how able is this person to contribute financially? How able is this person to kind of hold the fort down while you as a woman are doing your side, doing your work, doing your bit. You're a team. It's a team. It's not an individualistic thing. You're working together, and you've got to be able to rely on that man. And as a man, if you're a man watching, don't put that woman into a situation where she's now having to stress and worry and panic about money and putting a roof over their head. Even the logistics of childcare, picking up children, dropping off children, this, that, and the other. You've got to be fully involved in that. And that is going to need a certain, quite a high level of maturity, self-awareness, preparation on your part as a man to make sure that you're ready for that. So that's that. And, there's more to say about that provider thing. But I think what I would push back a little bit is with regard to the man being a provider. I think sometimes we go a bit over the top with that though. And I think that what can happen is that we can put it into our boys' heads that is all that they're there for, that the boy is just there as a cash machine. Because what can happen as well is that if a young man is just focused purely on the money, then they'll go into certain fields that is just about the money, and they're not really considering, well, what impact is this going to have on your health, your physical health? What impact is this going to have on your mental health? If these guys are going into the corporate world or whatever, or they're going into, say, banking and finance and stuff, working 12-hour days, this, that, and the other. Yeah, you're going to get a shed load of money. You're going to get a whole load of ducats for doing that. But that's going to have an impact on your ability to know yourself, to have it's going to take an impact on your mental well-being, your physical well-being. How many of our people do we know who are developing the pot bellies and they're not even 30? The pot bellies are already developing, and I'm not to disparage, not to be rude, but it's just a matter of fact that overweight and obesity are key risk factors for and are associated closely with things like your type 2 diabetes, with your high bad cholesterol, low good cholesterol, hypertension, high blood pressure, all of which are associated with a higher level of stroke, heart attack, premature death, basically. So it can't be money at any cost. It's not get rich or die trying. No, it's get wealth of all kinds, including mental wealth, your self-wealth. So I think that's something that we've got to be really careful with regard to men, to not make them think that their sole purpose in life is just to bring money. I suppose another thing I'd say as well is that with a lot of these podcasts and whatnots on here, we're talking about black men and whatever. You'll always come across these conversations where they're like, will a woman respect a man if she earns more than the man, and all that sort of stuff, and all these, talking points. But here's the thing. Here's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to take that time to let children know themselves, learn themselves. And, those kind of conversations for me speak to individuals who are they haven't done the work on themselves. If you have a partner, say if you're a man and your woman, you feel like your woman is looking down on you because maybe she currently earns more than you, then you have to really consider, are you two suited to each other actually? Because if the woman is looking down on you because of how much you earn, or vice versa for that matter, if there's a lack of respect over salaries, then that indicates that there are deeper problems here. Why should your salary be so important with regard to the respect levels? It shouldn't. There may well be times where the man is going to be earning less than the woman. There'll be times where the woman's earning less than the man. But you should be connected and you should be unified in something much deeper than just how much money can I bring to the table. You should be connected, and your relationship should be built on a common purpose, a shared set of values, a shared set of principles, a shared set of ideas about what life is all about, what are the important things in life, what are the you need to have a spiritual connection. You need to have the same view of the world. You need to have hashed all before you even think about having children. Years. You need to, in fact, as soon as you meet, you need to be, and if you're serious, unless you're just meeting people to just have sex with and just, that's it, then that's whatever. You do you, whatever, But there's a lot of negative consequences to that, but that's for another time. But if you were meeting someone for the purpose of hopefully getting together and building a life with or without children, then as soon as possible, you need to be digging and getting deep onto the philosophical level, because those are the things that will last. Those deeper philosophical foundations are the things that are going to make your relationship last long, all the way through the tough times, through the difficult times, because the difficult times will come. When children come, that's going to put an enormous amount of stress on you and your relationship. And if you haven't got that foundation that's on a solid rock foundation, philosophical, spiritual foundation, and by philosophical and spiritual, I'm talking about the big questions in life and the big questions about what is good, what is true, what is the purpose and meaning of these sorts of things, and, how people should relate to each other and all that sort of stuff. You've got to have that purpose, otherwise your relationship will break down. And it's people who don't have those kinds of foundations, who haven't done the work in and of themselves. They haven't done this, they're not self-aware in and of themselves. And certainly they're not aware of their partner's self-awareness. Those are the people who then will end up, breaking up at the drop of a hat when the going gets tough. And part of that, as I said, can be a real mismatch in the ideas with regard to what it means for a man to be a provider.